Welcome to the Fine Roots. My name is Tian. And before we begin today's episode, I'd like to do a 1 minute, if not a little bit more, of gratitude. Just taking a simple concept such as conversation to be grateful for. And when you think about it, like something as simple as having a conversation might be difficult to some. But if you're able to have a simple conversation, express your ideas, express your thoughts, just have a heartfelt conversation with someone, being able to just say hi and express your ideas and feelings and listen to them exchange their ideas and feelings. And there's something profound that happens when that occurs. That is, we both kind of learn something from one another, and we can share one perspective from one side of the coin to another. Like if I meet someone foreign that came from Europe, they can share what it's like to grow up in a country in Europe. And I can share what it's like to grow up in America. So now all of a sudden, I have access to information, experiences from a different place of the world that I wouldn't be otherwise capable of if I couldn't just have a conversation. And it's not like you could just read a book and get this sort of exposure, but rather you interacting with another person and just talking to them. And sometimes having a conversation and just as simple as just talking to someone might be difficult to some who's unable to talk or even formulate their own thoughts because of problems they might have, issues that causes them to not being able to formulate thoughts, physical injuries, just things that makes them unable to do that. So let's suppose that we woke up one day and we wanted to tell the person that we love him, or just share a funny thought we had, but we can't do that. And let's suppose that we saw something funny, heard something funny, but we can't tell them about it. So it is the small things in the life that makes life worthwhile, or that builds up towards the grand things of life. Kind of like, take a color, for instance. Let's suppose we take away the color red. Just one color. But you take away that one color, it takes away a whole scheme of colors. Because now you can't mix green with red. Now you can't mix blue with red. And we are very limited to what we have. We lose almost like, suppose the three primary colors, we lose one of the primary. Now all of a sudden we only have two. That is a 33% decrease in experience. And now we're talking about the range of colors, like orange, for instance. We don't have access to that. And other colors that mixes with red. So the simple things is what makes up the grand rainbow of life, what gives life color. So just gratitude before we begin the podcast. And today, we're going to talk about the mind. And today's metaphor is going to be tend your garden. And what does it mean to tend your garden? Well, let's suppose to say that our mind is our garden. And in like any garden, you can grow things in it. and you will sow things from that garden. Now, in a garden, we have plants that we want to plant, and we have things, unwanted things that comes from places of unwanted places, like weeds that just grow, spread, and they just grow on a garden. And same things with pollen, they pollinate, and all of a sudden we have like this thing that's growing in a garden. But more importantly, things will come to our garden by default because that's just how life is. And it is up to us, the gardener, to tend that garden. Are we going to allow weeds to grow in our garden? Are we going to allow like a random plant who managed to pollinate into our garden grow there? Because let's suppose to say that a potato managed to somehow grow in a garden, and we say, sure, you can grow here. And let's say another carrot comes into a garden, we can say, sure, you can grow here. And all of a sudden now you have like beets, broccoli, and all kind of stuff that grows in a garden without us consciously doing it. It just comes into a garden. And we say, yeah, sure, sure, you can grow here, you can grow here. No problem, no problem, no problem. And it turns out that we are allergic to all these things and we can't really eat it. And so our garden is filled with ideas and thoughts and things that doesn't really serve us. So we got to be careful with what is inside our garden. So sometimes people will say certain things, and if we don't think twice about it, it will grow inside our garden. Like an idea, a thought that we just kind of came across a video and we don't think much about it, and then we don't believe it yet, but it's like in the back of our mind. And suddenly now, like the first day, it grows there, and slowly it begins to grow more and more and more. And so we think to ourselves, yeah, it's always been there, but the potatoes are nice. You know, it doesn't hurt me, it doesn't hurt anyone else. It's always been there. But that also takes away space from what we want to grow. So let's say I'm allergic to potatoes, but all my life, potatoes has been there. It's been occupying the entire garden. And now I don't have space to even create my own things, my own thoughts, my own belief. I don't have space to foster them, to nourish them. So all my thoughts, all my beliefs are from someone else. And everything else has come from some place but mine. Like I haven't formulated my own thoughts. So it is crucial to tend our own garden and make sure what we want to grow there. And sometimes weed will come and it will take the nutrient from our own plants. So let's suppose that I want to grow carrots, and all of a sudden weeds begin to grow everywhere. And I thought to myself, oh, it's fine. It doesn't hurt the carrots. The carrots still grow. But really, the weed is pulling nutrients from the carrot. So it's not being able to fully grow to its fullest potential. So in other words, you're not growing into your fullest potential because of their small habits that's destructive. There's small things that happen in the mind that, let's say, I have a habit of doing X, Y, Z, and it pulls me back, holds me back from what I really want to do. So these are the weeds that exist in the mind. They pull nutrient from the main plant. And then there's again how one maintains the garden. And it's not us to really blame for it. It's no one to really blame for how we tend the garden, because some people are born and raised with the proper techniques and abilities to tend the garden. They are able to, whenever they see weeds, they instantly know how to deal with it. They know how to deal with the weed. Whereas other people, they don't know. They just think, oh, weed just look like a salad. It's probably a salad. I can probably eat it. But it turns out it's toxic. It's poisonous. So sometimes our thoughts can be poisonous and toxic. And what it causes is that it spreads to other people. And other people's toxic and thoughts, behavior can spread to our garden. So we got to be conscious of what we tend in this garden, the mind. And are we going to allow weeds to grow or what we want to sow? Right? So, again, being the gardener, we can't really blame anyone for it. It is what it is. We know what we know. But now the question is, do you know what you know? Or do you want to seek more than what you know? Because sometimes people don't want to grow. They don't want to seek for further development. They're fine with what they have. And that's okay. Not all gardens are perfect. Not all gardens are perfectly cared for. And not all carrots are equally nutritious. Some are malnutritious. Some potatoes have more nutrient than others. Some beet are more red. And some are deformed because of how the soil and the nutrient of that garden is. And the soil is essentially how we were made, like what our parents gave us. They gave us this garden. And what they know is what they know. There's no one to blame. They gave us a garden, and it's up to us to tend for that garden. Because we have the ability to make changes and choices to alter our garden. So now let's suppose to say that my garden is filled with weeds. What do I do? Well, first I would have to pluck it out. What do I do after? I don't know. But I just know that I have to pluck out the weeds. And suppose that I pluck out the weeds, and all of a sudden now I am left with this dirt, this empty ground that I don't know what to do with. And it is better to be empty than filled with weeds, filled with toxicity, filled with poisonous things. To have a blank state, I don't know. To say I don't know is to admit that in my garden there's nothing in there. And that's okay. And I don't know where it's this sound coming from. Oh well. And to admit that we don't know is to look at our own garden and say, hey, I don't know what to plant. And this is where the beauty of admitting that I don't know is that now I can plant things. Now I can plant potatoes. And I can go ask my friend, like, hey, what is that? What are you doing? Like, let's say they're planting carrots, and I really like what they do and what they have and their behavior. So I go up to them and I say, hey, whatever you're doing, I want to do that. Whatever the way that you are, I like the way you are. I don't know, how do you do it? So I want to consume what you consume. It looks like you've been eating beets and broccoli, so let me try to plant that. So I begin to plant broccoli and beets, and all of a sudden, I begin to feel in a different way, and I like the way that I feel. I like the way that I behave, and all of a sudden now my garden is slowly progressing in the direction of my desire, supposed to a direction of undesire. It's just random things that happens. Because if I don't tend my garden, someone else will. If I don't grow potatoes there, someone else is going to come by and say, hey, are you going to use that? If not, let me grow my things in there. And so we work for other people. We don't have their own, we have their beliefs. We have their thoughts. We don't have our own. We don't grow our own. We help out them. They have potatoes. We grow potatoes. We give it to them. In exchange, they give us something back. So, 10 for our garden is crucial if we want to grow in a way that we desire. Because if not, weeds will come, things will come, and it will occupy our garden. So again, know what you want to grow because it will be what you sow. And that's going to end today's podcast. I'll see you on the next one. Cheers.